Y'all, we talked before we got in this episode, and I told Lindsey, don't be asking me.
I'll answer that. I'm not a
things.
pastor. I ain't got no church. I don't think it's a sin. No. Feels good. No.
This guy
This dude is on fire. Let me say this. I believe that it is. When Paul talks about, sexual impurity and things of that nature, I think masturbation becomes an issue because, and I could be wrong and I could be deeply assuming, there's got to be a mental something going on while you engage with yourself. Now, when you go from that aspect and you look at Jesus saying that, it's not when you laid with the man's wife that was the sin. It's when you thought about her, when your mind went there. That is where the genesis of sin begins. It is, what does this action lead to? Where is this going to take me? Now, so as a pastor, my concern would be for someone who is doing this, what else you about to do? You probably need to slow down.
What else are you about to do?
And figure out your life. Don't
what else?
Don't ask me. Don't.
I mean, what does masturbation lead to? A release, and then you go on about your life.
So you go to sleep.
So I heard.
So y'all both grew up in a church, and your take and your belief at this point in your life is that it's not a sin.
I really don't know. I think that
self-pleasure
really,
is healthy.
you want to know something? I think
know.
that the only real sin is abuse, right? The abuse of anything. I think everything has a purpose, right? But people have a tendency to abuse things that they enjoy. I don't think that masturbation is a sin in and of itself. I think the abuse or the addiction to, when it is something that you have to do, if you have to do these ridiculous things to get to it, I think that is where sin comes in.
Do you think that God has boundaries that he has set for us?
Sure. Yeah. But I think that everything
What
has...
do you think the boundary is, though? With sex period. Is there nothing you believe we cannot say? Because I'm saying this, and the world is moving in such a way. There's an argument even brewing now that's gaining steam for pedophilia.
Disgusting.
Ew.
Yes. You look in the scriptures in the Old Testament, though, you got folks getting married to people that's 13, 14 years old.
But the book is infallible.
Oh.
That doesn't change the reality of that culture and the time. And this is the thing. You need. It's okay. Calm down. Bring it back. But you have people also pushing at some point, probably for things that we would consider extreme, as far as like bestiality.
Yeah.
What's to say when you talk about a woman freely exploring her sexuality?
You're like, ooh, look at that dog.
What's the line?
That's a beautiful cat.
Number one, I think that the line is drawn at, if we're talking about people wanting to have sex with kids, I think it has a lot to do with whether you have two consenting parties. I think that's difficult. Now, if we're talking about what the Bible thinks and what God thinks about that,
no, we're talking
I don't
strictly.
know.
So let's stick with the context of the church. What do you believe the voice of the church or the role of the church to be in that type of conversation? Should the church be the place where you are instructed, don't do, don't do, this is safe, this is wrong, this is dangerous? Or should the church be the place that tries to teach discernment?
That's the word.
Around these things?
I think it's discernment, because you can't, as a universally teach, do, don't do, don't do, because there's so many, I want to say discrepancies, but so many ways the Bible or the Word of God is interpreted when it comes to sexuality. And so you can say sex before marriage is wrong, but if you're going to do it, protect yourself. Don't be out here with these many people. Pick a partner. Be committed to that person. Because it's going to happen. You just can't leave it at don't have sex before marriage or you're going to hell. Psst, miss me with that.
Miss me.
You can't do that.
Sorry, God.
And so it's about using, like you said, using your discernment. If you're going to be having sex, then you protect yourself. There's diseases out here. Educate the people so that they can make smart choices. But when you don't touch on it from that aspect, you just talk about what the scripture says and then dismiss and raise the offering and send them on their merry way. Nothing has been accomplished.
Well, I think that to me, I think that the church, it's hard for us to say that the church should be that kind of gray. I think that's a hard thing for the church to do, to say like, well, if you're going to have sex, then you need to do this and you need to do that. Difficult. Yeah. But I do think that what I think the responsibility of the church is to talk about the purpose of sex. What is it really doing? What's really happening when people have sex? Because I think that people approach sex very casually. And like what you were talking about with the soul tie, I don't know if he needed to use a chewed up gum, but I do.
Oh, it was impactful though.
I'm sure it was, because you guys joked about it.
Nobody wants to marry the
but I think that it has more to do with honoring yourself. And that comes in, and that is, we can see that in everything.
But see, the thing about that, Lindsey, is that honoring yourself is now determined by yourself. You are setting the rules for you.
Well, but that's what I'm saying, that the church needs to speak more along the lines of like, even with drinking, even with eating, everything has to be done in moderation, right. In my opinion. I think the same pertains to sex. I think that like everything that you're taking into your body, everything that you're sharing yourself with, I think people need to be picky about all of that. I think people need to be picky about the people they decide to have conversations with. I don't have time to exchange energy with everybody. I take myself more seriously than that. And I think that people who decide, who make sex super casual and will lay with anybody just because they're horny, I think that they need to learn discipline.
Yes.
That's the sin, is that you don't know how to tell yourself no.
I feel that.
And I think that's the important part. And I think that's why teaching waiting till marriage matters. And I think the power in waiting till marriage is that you have to exercise some level of discipline. And you're going to need that in marriage. Because just because you got married and you can now have sex with this person, you ain't going to always only want to have sex with them. And if you've never taught yourself to say no to what you desire, you're a goner.
So what does preparation look like? What does proper preparation look like to you to prepare a man or a woman for this eventual covenant, this connection, this relationship they choose to enter into? Because on one hand, you're saying the church has, and I agree, it's been taught in such a way that you have negative effects even when a person is in a relationship they are able to engage sexually in. But how do you prepare without encouraging someone to do? How do you prepare them for the beauty of those moments?
I think explaining it, and first of all, that is normal. That is natural. Because the idea, like, because if you only supposed to have sex when you get married, it's really a biological thing, okay? People get, I remember, this probably too much.
This is the thing. I'm going to jump devil's advocate and switch play. Because there are people that do not believe that the purpose of sex is strictly for procreation. There are some that believe the purpose of it is for the enjoyment and the pleasure of the body.
I think so, for sure.
So,
I think
in terms of purpose,
it's both.
But if we believe, okay, so science says that when you have sex and when you have a baby, the woman gives off chemicals,
correct,
that bonds her with the baby when you have a baby and with the baby's father. That is what you teach. That isn't a game.
But
that isn't for play.
Soul tie.
Okay, but you don't have to teach it like a chewed up piece of gum.
Dang.
That was just one example.
I said I agree. No, I said I agree with
Okay.
that. I agree that sex should be
So you're
taught.
saying teach it in the church from the context of biology as well as the spiritual.
Yeah, the fact that this is a real thing, that these things happen, that it is something that binds you, that connects you with the person.
I need some popcorn.
To
This
me,
is a good conversation.
To me, the purpose of sex is not only for you to procreate, but I think it's a form of very intimate communication. And that's why it's so important in marriage.
So let me ask this question, because back in the days, 60s, 70s, 80s, you can teach wait for sex until you get married and have the kids and this and that. But we're living in a different time. We know what that time is. You can't keep delivering that same message 20, 30 years later. It's not effective.
But what you're saying suggests that God changes his mind.
No,
And I'll keep
we're
it
not
sound like
talking
an old
about
preacher.
God. We're talking about the message that you've been teaching for all of these years past. Is you can't teach that same message.
So what are you changing the
moving
message
forward.
to?
The message isn't changing. It's your approach in the message. You can't
the
tell
delivery
these
of
young
the
people
message you
this
wanna change.
today, don't have sex, wait till you get married, because they're going to sit there and be like, okay. And then as soon as they get out of this little round table discussion with you, trying to set something up for tonight.
that happened in the 60s, 70s, 80s.
Not
It
as
worked
much.
for
And then you talk about marriage
I
and
didn't.
then
I told you the man was gonna leave.
stand together while you marry, stay together through everything. The longevity of marriage in this day and age, maybe 2 years. Come on, if that.
But that's still people shifting. What are you saying in terms of?
So this takes us back to the message. What is the message coming from the leadership or the pulpit in the church as it relates to sexuality and having sex? What do you say? How do you get the message through to your young people or, millennials?
I got a youth pastor. I don't have that conversation.
What do you? But okay, let's talk about that though.
Go ahead.
What job does the church have or what responsibility do they have in teaching young people about sex? Like, is that the church's job? Should they even be talking about
Yes. I'm going to tell you why. The church has done a poor job because, and I say this even from the time I served as a young adult pastor, this was kind of my thought at that time. And I remember, I thank God that our pastor allowed us to do a whole series on sex. And our church has always been where he's allowed the young adult pastor to kind of go where we needed to go. But you ask folk to come to Jesus. They come to Jesus, and we consistently say over and over, give Jesus your heart, give the Lord your heart. And they give God their heart. We never teach them how to transition any other side of themselves other than their pocketbook. You got to pay. We on tithes and offerings. You need to give the Lord your money. The devourer gonna come and eat all your food. But we never tell them how to deal with the side of them that is horny at 1 a.m. and dude texting you like, what am I supposed to do in this moment? Like what, and we demonize it to the point that I heard, oh my goodness, this is so crazy. I remember a church mother telling some young girls that their body becoming aroused was the devil. And I was like, dang, the devil.
and
That's
that's
how
the
the
problem.
body's made.
Scare tactics.
And so, but my point is that, yes, the church has to be more involved in helping, whether it's 15, 25, or 35, figure out, what do I do? How do I respond? And what in the world is this? Because right now, is sex ed even still in schools?
I don't see
know.
why not.
I don't go to
I
school.
don't remember.
Who
When I
knows?
was in school, I don't remember even talking about
It was in there, but sex
how did-
ed during school was more about, I think sex has just always
It
been
was
taught
all
from a
about
scary
the
spot.
anatomy.
Because they
type.
talked about the anatomy and the STDs. That's what I
Yeah.
remember.
Oh, in the baby video. They showed us the
Yes.
baby video.
It was like, okay, sex is bad all around.
I was like, that destroys you. I was like, alien. Crazy.
So, but how can the church effectively have the sex conversation
I don't think they can.
and be aligned with what's being taught in the house, if there's anything being taught in the house,
In the house, what do you mean?
with the parents?
Oh, the parents.
Because if the parents is saying one thing or not saying anything at all in the church, and then the kids come back and have questions for the parents, and the parents like, oh, shut up, that ain't, don't worry about that. You ain't
So I
having
think-
sex no way.
I think you need to be, I think that the church should just wait till young adult to talk sex. Because I just think it's so tricky to have those conversations with younger people, especially with the parents, because look, let me say something. I don't want my kid to be getting no messaging from a bunch of different places, because it's already hard to keep a cap on what they learning.
Well, no. So when I say the church should be involved, I don't mean we have a sex class at the church. I mean that preachers, teachers are intentional in weaving in these references so that people understand, oh, it's not the devil if, I'm aroused.
Right.
It's not, Now, at some point, if you always aroused, then there'll be a medical problem with it. It's the devil.
Even if it's a medical problem, it is a manifestation of a demon. It's a manifestation
of a demon. You stay like that. You need to, if that's you, call somebody right now. There's a number on the screen now.
1999.
199 exorcism. But if not, those kind of moments you be able to say. But I think part of it is, I don't know if this exists. We probably should have a parents ministry where there's someone that sits with parents and those that raise children to say, let us help you figure out how to have these conversations. And then you bring in a sex expert, you bring in a psychologist to sit with these folks and say, look, somebody gonna talk to your kid about this stuff.
Yeah.
It should probably be you.
That's true. That's good. Because I also think the messaging is different now, because a lot of the people aren't married and they got kids. So what are you talking about? Talking about wait till marriage.
That is true.
Because you ain't married and you
like,
ain't never been married.
My 3 brothers got different daddies.
Right. It was an easier message to push when I was younger, because the people was married or getting married.
Mine nappy. My sister got blue eyes.
Dude, you got issues. But that is true. It's hard to have that conversation if the kid is looking at a home life that does not match what is preached, what is declared. And then actually because then the negative side effect of that is you create shame in a child. Sadly, probably more so the little girl, because there's this negative connotation. If it's just my mama raising us, mama can't keep a man. If it's, and it becomes this driving, that's a good point.